Well, hello everyone, and welcome to Hogarth's Global Astrology. Know your planets, know yourself, or know your nation, know yourself. The two are interchangeable. And this is episode 4 of Reflections. Yeah, Reflections. And what I've done on this video, what I've done is because there's been some issues with like kind of sound recording, recording things being choppy, a little bit choppy. I'm kind of recording slower, slightly lower pixelation density so that there's plenty of bandwidth to cover what it is that I want to say and stuff like that. So today it's going to start out with a rant. And then I'm going to share with you some ideas and stuff about Atlantis and some prophecies and stuff like that, because I am just looking at things in the world. And, like I was talking about this great awakening / rude awakening happening for all of humanity. And like, remember I said, this is epic. I said, this is epic. I said, this is bigger than COVID. You heard me say that. And that's not to alarm people, but it's because I believe it to be true. In fact, I'm actually hearing other media outlets, even like legacy media outlets, talk about the tariffs and everything that is going on being bigger than COVID. I think Wall Street already had one of its days, which was almost as bad as the Great Depression in 1929. So there's several things I want to talk about. So what I want to have a rant about is I've just been out with a wonderful day with my friend Tara, my bestie Tara. Big shout out to Tara if she's watching this. And then we've had a great day, and I thought, you know what, I need to shoot a video for you guys. Let me just do a bit of research and stuff like that, because I knew I wanted to talk about Atlantis before recording this. And then, of course, I'm catching up on the news. And what do I see? I see that the FBI, via Kash Patel and i.e. the Trump regime, has arrested a judge. And I've made some notes here. So a judge in Wisconsin, Milwaukee, Hannah Dugan, and she's been arrested for allegedly letting Eduardo Flores Ruiz escape out of a side door in order to avoid potentially being deported by ICE. This is what I understand the story to be at this stage. I think it's still a breaking and unfolding story. But I'm going to share my screen with you where you see this tweet by Kash Patel. Yeah, talking about it. And as you guys know, I was talking about this in my Thursday fry-up just gone, and today's day is, well, actually now for me in the UK is now the early hours of Saturday morning. So I went out Friday night, caught up with Tara, my friend Tara, and it is the 26th of April 2025. And when you get this, I'm going to be putting this out Saturday, sort of like evening UK time. Yeah. And oh man, the undiluted douchebaggery continues. I think Trump is getting desperate. And like in all fascist regimes are also, it's also a form of terrorism as well. You need to terrify people. You need to terrify the intelligentsia, educated people, etc. You need to put the fear of God into them, so to speak. He's tried to do it with the universities. And of course, they've been pushing back, the most notable being Harvard, of course, who have pushed back because they understand that, universities and other institutions are the bastion of free speech and protecting American citizen rights. But this is the first time now that they've gone after the judiciary. And this is a shot across the bow. This is a warning, a no mistake warning to the judiciary, which could also include SCOTUS, by the way, which have given Trump, what you got to remember is SCOTUS gave Trump this effective immunity for him to effectively be able to do whatever he wants, as long as it's in his official capacities. Yeah. So push comes to shove, you know, when he throws them all in a gulag, yeah, if it goes that far, he was like, but it was in my official capacity. You were threatening me. You were threatening to do this, that, and the other. Yeah, this is how it works. And this is what this is why it's all so short-sighted. These people who are deluded, as you saw in my Thursday Friday when I was pulling cards on this, they're deluded. Yeah, they're deluded. You can't give someone like Duck Larange this kind of power and not expect it to blow up back in your face. Because in all fascist regimes, what they do is they attack the intelligentsia, people that are going to criticize them, and they attack the judiciary, because so far the judiciary has been holding up, has been resisting the regime, and now they've arrested this judge, which is going to strike fear into the heart of all members of judiciary, because as we know, the judiciary in America, they don't really have their own army or defense force, etc. They can call up, you know, I think, is it National Guard? I think that's what people have told me. But of course, that National Guard has to obey what? The commander in chief, which is Trump, Duck Larange. So we are at a crucial inflection point. Main legacy media has been like, oh, is this a constitutional crisis? It's been a constitutional crisis basically since Trump was sworn in, and he started to do his douchebaggery. So of course, with the tariffs, he's been forced to back down on certain levels or modify or, you know, walk back his rhetoric or language, etc. Because no country can function if it's completely and totally bankrupt. Then you can't do anything. You can't pay anyone. You can't even maintain control on a certain level. So, of course, Trump is wanting to get on the front foot. Now, of course, his henchman, Kash Patel, has done this, but we know that he was put in place by Trump. And of course, he when they do that, what is it called? You know, when they check them over in Congress, I forget what the name is, and they basically gave him the thumbs up, yeah, to go through. And then he started doing all of his BS with the FBI and asking people in the FBI if, you know, what their loyalties were, etc., and stuff like this. So what we're seeing is undiluted douchebaggery. As I say, this is they've got the fascism on the speed ramp. Yeah, they're on the fascist train and they're going as fast as they can. Because with Trump's terrible polling, which is some of the, I think is actually the lowest at this stage of any president's tenure, and this is still within the first 100 days, he knows he can't win a midterms fair and square. I think too much has been pinned on the midterms because the pace at which things have moved now is like, listen, look what's happened in a matter of weeks and months. This is ridiculous. It's outrageous. But this is also the reality check. As I said, Saturn moving into Pisces, sidereal Pisces, on the 29th of March, 2025. I said this is when Saturn bangs the gong. And this is where Saturn is going to be giving the world and everyone, especially in the States, reality checks about where things really are. These illusions and delusions will come to an end. You know who's also having their, it's not only MAGA voters, not all of them, of course, because a lot of them are just rusted on diehards and they're not going to come back to earth because they've allied themselves with shadow too much. But there are a lot of MAGA voters that are now waking up to the reality of just like, oh my goodness, you know, SNAP has been stopped. What about my food stamps? Medicaid, what's going to happen there? Yeah, Social Security, they're kind of tinkering and messing around with that. You know, I think it's 73 million people correct me if I'm wrong in the comments, but I understand about 73 million people use Social Security. Yeah, so that's for when you're 65 and over, you've paid into it your whole life. Comes out your paycheck from whenever you started working. Some people have been working since the age of 16. They call it an entitlement, but the reason why they called it entitlement is because that is what you're entitled to. The state is supposed to look after you. This was put in, of course, by Roosevelt. Yeah. 4-term president, one of the greatest presidents America's ever had. Probably one of the greatest leaders in the world. So we see this whole scale attack. And of course, because Duck L'Orange, Trump has had a lot of losses, because obviously his BS with the China tariffs and stuff like that, China have just been like, F you, dude. You know, they're like, you know what, raise it to wherever you want. It says once you go, they said once you go above 100 and whatever percent, there's no point. You've effectively closed down trade between our countries. And this is why he's backpedaled on certain electronic goods like iPhones, etc., and stuff like that. Because what he wants is he wants all of these big business people to come and beg him for relief on tariffs so he can cut his own individual deals, yeah, making corruption rife. They said if an iPhone was constructed in America with American wages, etc., hands doing the work, all that lot, they said an iPhone, the production costs alone would be at least $30,000 each. How much you can't sell? What are you going to do once you have to put a bit of profit on that? $40,000 for an iPhone? I don't think so. Yeah, be like buying a car. So, of course, there needed to be some stuff on that. And then, of course, all the executives got together, these top, billionaire companies, and were just like, dude, you put on these tariffs, this is going to affect us, empty shelves and all of this kind of stuff. But he's a lunatic, yeah? Duck L'Orange is a lunatic. So everyone is getting their reality checks now. Now we're seeing the judiciary. Now, of course, this Wisconsin judge wouldn't have sided with Trump, but this is a message to SCOTUS. This really is a message to SCOTUS. You've got to remember, Trump is a very vengeful man. Yeah, his thing is revenge. He is annoyed at how collectively the judiciary has thwarted his fascistic plans. So he's like, right, I need to put a shot across the bow to put these people in their place. And that's why this judge has been arrested, to strike fear into the hearts of judges, like he's done with those in Congress, which have just laid over and just let him do what he wants. Because the majority of them are in the cult as well, but anyone that tries to rebel or resist is obviously getting death threats and all of that kind of stuff. We are in critical times, critical historic times. As you've heard me say before, this is about the division of the waters. Yeah, this is about humanity, where we're going. The energy, believe it or not, as awful as things appear right now, it is actually going up. The vibration is raising, but as the vibration is raising, those that wish the things to stay, maintain the status quo, have to push back even harder. So these extremes, yeah, because obviously the vibration is raising among the judiciary, because they're like, this isn't right, this isn't constitutional. I'm going to uphold the law. I'm going to let this guy go. So, of course, they have to crack it down. So how does this feed back to Atlantis? I'm going to show that in a minute, but let me just share my screen with you so you can see for yourself. Now, what I'm going to be sharing with you is just a screenshot. I paused it, and this is someone called, you guys will know him, Brian Tyler Cohen. Yeah. So you can see here, and he's put up here, he's shown the slide where this is the FBI Director Kash Patel. Just now, the FBI arrested Judge Hannah Dugan out of Milwaukee, Wisconsin on charge of obstruction after evidence of Judge Dugan obstructing an immigration arrest operation last week. We believe Judge Dugan intentionally misdirected federal agents away from the subject to be arrested in her courthouse, Eduardo Flores Ruiz, allowing the subject, an illegal alien, he says, to evade arrest. Thankfully, our agents chased down the perp on foot, and he's been in custody since, but the judge's obstruction created increased danger to the public. They say, like, really. We will have more to share soon. Excellent work. Yeah. So we're seeing here, and then we're getting the reaction as well from what's his name? I forget what he's
increased danger to the public. Now, Brian, to my career prosecutor's eye, I have at least two concerns with what Kash Patel posted. First of all, he said expressly, we believe Judge Dugan did those things. Let me tell you, sport, that was directed at Kash Patel. You better have more than a belief that Judge Dugan did these things. You better have sufficient admissible evidence to satisfy the burden of probable cause to arrest a judge or anybody. The standard is not different to arrest a judge or arrest a career drug dealer. Probable cause is probable cause. And Kash Patel's belief doesn't cut it. He didn't say we have an arrest warrant issued by a federal judge to take Judge Dugan into custody. Now, I am assuming his agents must have had an arrest warrant because, you know, that's kind of criminal procedure and police investigations 101. Not that I would expect Kash Patel to know about that, but
I'll stop it there because obviously could keep going on about that indefinitely. So we see it, yeah? Judges being arrested. Doesn't matter about the evidence or due process, because we know that this is a regime that is not about due process. This is about striking fear into the hearts of the judiciary. This is about Trump saying to SCOTUS, you dare defy me, I will throw you guys in prison as well. And now they're like, oh dear, whoopsie. What did they honestly think would happen when you give someone like Duc Larange the status of a king? And this is where the illusion and delusion is. These people thinking that they are exempt, that Trump will not turn on them, that they can control him. You can't control Duc Larange. Like I said, he's got Uranus in the 10th house, which is the planet of sudden shocks and surprises. 10th house is named career and fame. Yeah, your duties, highest office. And in there, he's got the sun, so he sees himself as the king. This is in sidereal Taurus, by the way, 29 degrees of sidereal Taurus. But in there, he's got Rahu. Rahu makes things extreme, more extreme. Rahu is also an eclipse. But eclipses don't last forever. What I've found is, remember, Trump was born on an eclipse, and in Vedic astrology, we call the eclipses the king makers. An eclipse is a blemish in the earlier part of the life, but in the second half of life, I found it actually boosts a person. It makes them more powerful because the eclipse swallows the sun, but it doesn't last forever. Rahu and Ketu both exaggerate things, but especially Rahu. Any planet with Rahu, especially in the second half of life chart, the D9, becomes boosted, exaggerated. So if it's the sun, then the person can end up becoming a supreme leader of something, whether that person is good or not. Rahu deals with liars and cheats, yeah? If Rahu is being used in a good way, it means a person can become an extraordinary leader in a positive way because they've had that blemish of Rahu in their life. They've had that eclipse where they've had to overcome great adversity. Rahu, like Neptune, I say these are the planets of extreme talents, extreme gifts, can give supernatural powers, can mean supernatural leadership. But what if a person uses that for the negative? The negative of Rahu is what? Liars, cheats, charlatans, frauds. And it's there with Uranus, sudden shocks and surprises, the extremes, the mavericks, the weirdos, strange. The positive of Uranus can talk about genius, and it can talk about innovations, visions of the future, etc. But the shadow can also be extremely dark. It talks about the mad professor, the weirdo just weird, bonkers stuff, outlandish, uncouth, out of control. Yeah. So Trump has got Sun, Rahu, Uranus, or something like that. But it's those three in his 10th house of career, name, and fame. And this is why we're seeing this extreme. And this is part of the illusion and delusion, because people think they can control him. SCOTUS think, oh, well, we've got this guy. No, you haven't. He'll do that next. You gave the guy immunity, effectively, as long as he's acting in an official capacity. And this one, he's doing Kash Patel, he's getting to do it. But this is also aimed at SCOTUS. Be under no illusion about that. This is what this is about. It's about intimidating the judiciary. Okay, so we've got that, yeah, which is horrible. Yeah, oh God. Yeah, the douchebaggery. But what I want to understand, what I want to also emphasize is that humanity is changing. The yugas have changed. Many of you will have seen this before, and you can actually purchase these illustrations on my website, where you get the high resolution scan of this. But as you know, this is my illustration here, and showing the cycle, yeah, the cycle of the yugas. Now, we have the Satya Yuga, which is like up here, which is the golden age, yeah, golden age, and it goes, you know, it goes ascending and descending. You see here, this is the Kali Yuga, the age of iron, where human consciousness is said to be at its lowest. But look, we are now in the Dwapara Yuga, which is the age of bronze. So you got iron, bronze, silver, gold. Yeah, iron, bronze, silver, gold. Now, there are different theories about this. Some say that each section lasts for about 3,000 years. I'm going with a slightly older system, which is that they, you know, you have the ascending and descending and years either side. You see how it balances out. But essentially, the Kali Yuga is two sections of 1,200 years, and then you've got a few hundred years as an overlap. Then the Dwapara Yuga is 2,400 years either side. Yeah, you see here. Ascending, ascending, descending. And then and that's the Bronze Age. And then you got Treta Yuga, which is considered, so the Bronze Age is the age of energy. Treta Yuga is seen as the mental age. And each one of those lasts 3,600 years. Again, a few hundred years transition. And then you got the Satya Yuga, which is 4,800 years each. Yeah, up here. Now, why is this important? It's because we are here. Yeah, do you see? We're here when I did this illustration. So we're in the early stages of Dwapara Yuga, but we still got the hangover of Kali Yuga, which is the lowest consciousness, which is all about domination, control, you know, abuse, pillage, all of this kind of stuff. So there are people who are still in that mindset of that age, but that age is coming to an end. Yeah. We need to remember as well, if we think how old Christianity is, it's what, over 2,000 years old. Remember that big stellium that I was talking about, that happened on the 29th of March, which is 7 planets, but it's 8 if you include Chiron. Chiron is an asteroid, it's true, but he's very, very significant. A configuration of 8. Yeah, 8. When I was predicting things to do with the pandemic, I think that was about 5 planets in sidereal Sagittarius on Christmas Day. I think about 5 planets. This is 7, and then 8 if you include Chiron. Epic transformations. This was how I was able to predict that sadly the Pope would pass. Pisces is what? The sign of Christianity. And this is why I said officially Pisces has now come to an end. Yeah, in terms of its, now we'll have to see if they pick a progressive Pope, then of course the Catholic Church can continue on for a bit longer. It will all dissipate away anyway. If they pick a conservative one, it will break down faster. Because we're at this crucial juncture where the consciousness is ascending, but then the old things have to break down. So what does this have to do with Atlantis and stuff like that? Now, let me just share my screen again. Gosh, look at this, 24 minutes in. It's only supposed to be a half-hour show. So let's see here. Oh wait, is this the Younger Dryas? You just share here. Now, anyway, this is a little clip, Secret Origins. Yeah, it talks about Atlantis, etc., and stuff like that. Let me just kind of rewind it a little bit. I'll just play you a little bit of it, which is talking about, you know, Plato and where the legend was first heard. Yeah, and then we'll talk
Of
about
Atlantis. But where does this myth of this mysterious sunken island come from? One of the most famous and early mentions of Atlantis comes from the Greek philosopher Plato around 360 BC in two of his dialogues, Critias and Timaeus.
Learn German with Play German TV.
apologies.
Plato gave a detailed description of a country on a fertile land that he called Atlantis. He describes it as a vast island which, before sinking around 10,000 years BC, was located in the Atlantic Ocean beyond the Pillars of Hercules, which are generally thought to refer to the Strait of Gibraltar. His knowledge of Atlantis most likely came from Solon, an Athenian lawmaker and philosopher who around 600 BC, on a trip to Egypt, learned of a great civilization that has existed 9,000 years earlier. The subject of Atlantis fascinated Plato, and it is believed that in order to learn more, he consulted with students of Pythagoras and others who were familiar with the ancient mythological, historical, and geological knowledge. Undoubtedly, Plato received some of his knowledge from initiates who were members of secret brotherhoods guarding the ancient histories.
All right, so if I stop it there. So why am I mentioning this? Because when you think of the Yuga cycle, they say Atlantis. Now you can imagine Atlantis was a great time of enlightenment. This was happening during what? The Golden Age. Yeah, the Golden Age, which would have been around about up here. Yeah, but of course you have the ascending Satya Yuga and then you have the descending Satya Yuga. So what it means is, so if we look at it here, yeah, this would have been they're starting to have the descending Satya Yuga. So there was a golden age where humanity was just extraordinary, incredible technology, high spirituality, etc. Now, I was doing research on Atlantis sometime last year, and I actually, you know, read a few books on this, and I was also listening to the prophecies of Edgar Cayce. You guys know who that is. And this happened. There was a mass extinction event of megafauna and stuff like this about 12,000 years ago, which I surmise to be the descending Dwapara Yuga and the age of Atlantis. What they say is with Plato, when he got the legend about the island falling into the sea, according to Edgar Cayce and some other people, if I remember correctly, that part where they talk about that last island falling into the sea, they say that may have been actually what was the last remnants of a much bigger landmass. They say that actually Atlantis went from the coast of Spain, close to Gibraltar, yeah, the clashing fingers of Hercules, all the way across the Atlantic and ended up, which is now in the Caribbean, and they say Cuba is the last remnants of Atlantis because that was the highest mountainous part, and the rest sunk to the bottom of the sea, which of course is the ocean. So imagine a landmass that long, which would have to be thousands of miles wide, spanning from Spain off to the coast, pretty much close to Florida, Cuba. Yeah, imagine. And they say this is where we get the name Atlantic from. in terms of entomology and stuff like that, would make absolute sense. Now I'm going to read for you now what Edgar Casey said, and some others corroborated, is that Atlantis didn't disappear in one day. It disappeared over a number of years. And they say it was due to comet impacts. This is what Edgar Casey said. We know how accurate his prophecies have been. A succession of comet impacts hit every autumn, hit Atlantis, but also the polar ice caps, melting them. Why is it, we should ask, that so many cultures, ancient cultures from around the world, have a flood story? They say these legends and myths, these traumas can actually live on in legends and myths. And when you actually examine some of these legends and myths, they can sometimes be rooted in truth. What they say is that this every year, as the Earth passed through the path of this comet that had come, allegedly had come into the Earth's orbit, into our solar system, every autumn, the Earth would pass through the debris of this comet. And the debris was falling on Atlantis and destroying it, but also falling on the ice caps. Imagine this scorching hot explosions, which would lead to what? Rapid melting. Once upon a time, like the middle of the Earth, around the equatorial areas, was really quite temperate. I think this is what they were talking about in terms of the Garden of Eden. When they look back, way back in ancient times, they can see that people had very, very good nutrition. It was mainly kind of vegetarian-based diet, but they had very, very good nutrition, high amounts of calories and stuff, because you can find this out from the bone density, etc., all of this stuff. But you know what the clincher was for me? Is that every autumn we have shooting star showers. And, you know, and I've got these things lined up here on Google just to kind of back up my arguments. And they're not really my arguments. I'm just sharing these arguments with you, because there are Edgar Casey and other kind of psychic intuitives, and all too long to explain, have tried to basically kind of corroborate with this. But I want to back you up with something here. So look, what we're going to look at, the Younger Dryas. Yeah, I'm going to share screen. Asteroid, where is it? Mystery of Atlantis, Younger Dryas. So I'm going to share this with you. So this is scientific fact, yeah, this Younger Dryas, and I'm going to read out elements for you. The Younger Dryas was a period of abrupt cooling that occurred between approximately 12,900 and 11,700 years ago. Right, the descending Satya Yuga that I was talking about, which was about what, 12,000 years ago, which Edgar Casey and others said was the time of Atlantis. If we also, with that clip where I was showing you, where it was talking about that guy, you had Plato, but the guy before him, his name's just gone out of my head. That was around about 400 BC. When he went to the Egyptians, they said it was 9,000 years ago at that time. Yeah, going back in time of this ancient civilization. And of course, the priests of Egypt, of course, kept incredible records. This was before everything was lost and burnt in all the great fires and of Alexandria and all of this stuff. So you see, there's correlation here, correlation at least. Interrupting the general warming trend at the end of the last ice age. Yeah, at the end of the last ice age. So what they say is that in the ice age, of course, the Antarctica and the North Pole were much bigger. But what they say is that there was a temperate region in the middle, which was around about the perfect temperature. They say it would basically be around about 23 maybe up to 28 degrees or something like that, where it was temperate, warm, everything could grow. Maybe this is what they were referring to as the Garden of Eden. This is what I speculate. Anyway, so warming trend at the end of the last age. It's named after a flower, Dryas Octopetala that thrived in cold conditions during that time. The event is notable for its rapid onset and termination, with temperatures in Greenland rising by 10 Celsius in just a decade, according to a paper from the National Centers of Environmental Information. Yeah. So key features of the Younger Dryas: abrupt cooling. The Younger Dryas marks the significant cooling period following the retreat of ice sheets, returning parts of Europe and North America to near glacial conditions. So you see, the glaciers were retreating, but then they came back. This is why we have all of these, in Norway, for example, the fjords. I've been through the fjords of Norway. They're incredibly deep. They are cut by glaciers. Rapid temperature fluctuations. The period was characterized by dramatic temperature changes, including rapid warming at the end of the Younger Dryas. Yeah, so really cold and then warmed up again. Impact on global climate. The Younger Dryas event had global implications affecting climate and vegetation patterns in various regions. Causes and mechanisms. While various factors have been proposed, a commonly cited explanation involves a shutdown of the Atlantic meridional overturning circulation due to freshwater discharges from melting glaciers in North America. So you see here, there was this, again, talking about this comet theory, where it was crashing into the glaciers, breaking them up and melting them, because so much of like the Gulf Stream and all that stuff relies on salt water. Once it gets diluted, it messes it up. Impact on humans and megafauna. So when they say megafauna, we're talking about the woolly mammoths. They say there were, you know, we know there were woolly mammoths because, of course, we have their carcasses remained, and also saber-toothed tigers. They also say there was giant eagles at the time and other lots of giant animals, which they called megafauna. The Younger Dryas event is linked to changes in human cultures and potential contributions to the extinction of megafauna. It is said that the Atlantis was overrun by woolly mammoths. If you still go to the bottom of the Atlantic, there are woolly mammoth tusks down there, but it's just sunk and sunk and sunk and sunk with time. This is why we can't find the evidence. Evidence of this hypothesis includes present impact ejecta like magnetic microspherules, and nanodiamonds at the Younger Dryas boundary. So around the Earth, you can actually see it's like this dark ashen layer in a lot of places in Earth. All around the Earth, when you dig into the ground, there's this layer of dust, sediment, which has got this granular diamond quality, which can only happen at extremely high temperatures like cloudbursts and comet impacts. The impact theory proposes that the event led to widespread wildfires, dust plumes, and other environmental changes that contributed to the cooling period and megafaunal extinctions. So what I want to share with you now, oh, actually, why did I do that? I should have just stayed on the sharing tab. Anyway, let me just go back again. I didn't need to come out of it. Let's talk about asteroid showers. So here, and then I was like, oh my God, the asteroid showers that we have every fall, that's probably the remnants of this comet that started to come into orbit. And they said the reason why the comet came into our solar system was because of a great crime that apparently was committed against a high priestess, because this is the descending golden age. Yeah, so this is when human consciousness is starting to lower again. It's still way more elevated than where we are now, obviously, as we can see with real times, but it's starting to go back up again. But back then, the descending, and apparently they tore to shreds a high priestess, because she could see that corruption was starting to come in and she wanted to preserve the good ways. And apparently she cursed, as she was being torn to shreds, she cursed the people of Atlantis. And they said this is when the comet came. And it was like that film, Don't Look Up. Yeah, because when you got a comet that's about to impact Earth, it will shine like a big star or a big apparition in the sky, just like in Don't Look Up. And imagine this would happen every year, yeah, as the Earth crossed through the tail or the head or the tail of this comet, which was also going around the sun. So imagine it's going around the sun, and the Earth's path is crossing through all of this debris. And I think it's this stuff here. In 2025, autumn brings several notable meteor showers, including the Draconids, Orionids, Taurids, Leonids, and Geminids. So Draconis, of course, is talking about the dragon in the sky in terms of constellation. Orion, constellation of or Aranids. Taurids, of course, is Taurus. Leonids, Leo, and Geminids, Gemini. These showers occur as the Earth passes through debris trails left by comets and asteroids, creating visible streaks of light, meteors, as these particles burn up in the atmosphere. But imagine when they're the size of trucks, or, you know, hundreds of miles across. You're finished. Well, maybe not hundreds of miles across, but imagine if they're like multiple thousands of meters across. Effed, yeah? That's really bad. Draconids peak around October 8th to 9th with expected rate around 10 meteors per hour. Look towards the constellation of Draco. Orionids peak on October 21st to 22nd with the radiant within the constellation of Orion, expected to see around 25 meteors per hour. Taurids visible from late October to early December, peaking in November 12th to 13th, also known as Halloween fireballs. They originate from the constellation of Taurus, as I was saying. Leonids peaking 17th to 18th, known for potentially producing fireballs. Look for them streaking out in the constellation of Leo. Geminids, a particularly impressive shower, peaking in December 14th to 15th, producing around 150 meteors per hour from Gemini. Ursids, a sparser shower, peaking on December 22nd to 23rd, originating from Ursa Major, Ursa Minor, which means the Ursa means bear, the bear constellation, the big bear, or the Big Dipper, I think it sometimes is known. Best viewing time for many meteor showers during this pre-dawn hours when the radiant is high in the sky. So you see, when you put that together, we are still passing through the tails of these comets that potentially destroyed Atlantis. And I think these times are coming back. I know this video has gone on a bit longer, but you know, there's a lot to kind of cover here, and I'm having almost a bit of a stream of consciousness thing here because of this news and this rubbish that the world is having to deal with, particularly in the United States. And I feel so bad for people that didn't vote for this stuff. Right. Now, what I want to share with you is a prophecy from a Japanese person. So here, AI overview, a prophecy made by the Japanese seer Ryo Tatsuki, dubbed the Baba Vanga of Japan. Now, Baba Vanga was, I think she was Bulgarian. She was swept up in a tornado, lost her eyesight, and from then she was able to have visions. She saw a lot of stuff. Very well known in Eastern Europe. Anyway, warns of a mega tsunami in July 2025, particularly July 5th, they say, potentially triggered by an underwater volcanic eruption, and has captured global attention. While there's no scientific evidence confirming this specific event, experts acknowledge Japan's high-risk zone with the Pacific Ring of Fire, which we all know. Tatsuki's past accurate predictions, including 2011 Japan tsunami, have contributed to widespread concern surrounding the latest vision. Ryo Tatsuki, a former manga artist, has garnered recognition for her seemingly accurate disaster predictions dating back to the 1980s. She claims to have seen the mega tsunami in a vivid dream, which was documented. While the specific date of July 5th, 2025 is not explicitly mentioned in the search results, the overall prediction centers around a mega tsunami in July 2025, potentially caused by an underwater volcanic eruption. So something just rising up People have also been speculating about Atlantis rising up, but maybe could they also be referring to this? And then while scientists acknowledge Japan's seismic activity and the risk of large-scale disasters, they haven't confirmed specific mega tsunami for July 2025. The focus remains on the possibility of a mega tsunami triggered by an underwater volcanic eruption, as predicted by Tatsuki. The prophecy has sparked a debate between scientific skepticism and the belief in Tatsuki's past accurate predictions. And she also as well spoke of dragons, dragons coming together in the waters. Let me just stop share there. I'm at 45 minutes now. The important thing to understand is that Uranus can deal with earthquakes, particularly when he's in an earth sign. So I want to share with you here. Let me just put here, if we just look here, this is one of my clients' charts, but I want you to look at this. I want you to look at this, and you can see here, let me just put here new birth chart, and let's put now. Let's just call it now. And let's just put here New York. I just want to get you the sky now. There we are. So look at this. You can still see here. Oh, look, the moon is back. Do you still see here? This stellium in Pisces is still very significant. The sun has moved out now, but now the moon is back. So we can see here Rahu, Saturn, Venus, Neptune, Mercury. On the 29th, Venus was retrograde. Mercury was retrograde. Saturn, Mercury, and Venus are all planets of what? Business. Retrograde means review, revise, reassess. This is also the time, around the time when Trump was announcing all of his tariffs and stuff like that, turning the world upside down. Chiron is here. So as of now, we can see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, if you include Chiron. So you see, this stellium is still very, very active. But I want you to look at Uranus here in the sidereal Taurus. Taurus is an earth sign. Uranus is sudden shocks and surprises. And in my Uranus prediction on my Hogarth's financial astrology, I said, look, we could see not only changes to the money markets and stuff like that, because Taurus deals with asset classes of all kinds, money, wealth, etc. Uranus is the digital planet, and this is why I said digital currencies and all of that stuff is coming. The European Union have just actually announced a digital euro, which they're going to be rolling out. And of course, crypto is still knocking about in all sorts of places. It's tanked a lot because of Duck L'Orange, but it seems like it's making a bit of recovery. It's the future anyway. But the important thing to understand is Uranus is a planet of sudden shocks and surprises. Taurus is an earth sign. And I said we could have more quakes. Already there was, a 5.2 in San Diego. There was a 4.5 or something like that in Alaska. All sorts of things going on. Could this be the time when that Tatsuki, where we could have a mega one, where this Atlantis rises again? Who knows? Imagine if we had Atlantis come back. I mean, we'd all be finished. I hope that, to be honest, I hope that doesn't happen, because that will produce a tsunami that is taller than the Empire State Building, and that would just be all over for all of us. But could we have something like that? Because this kind of alignment, it does not happen often. You've heard me say this before. We will never see this again in our lifetimes, because once Neptune moves out, I mean, it's another 12 years, but Saturn is going to move out in 2.5 years. Rahu is going to be moving out. Rahu and Ketu will be moving out at the end of May, and it takes them 18.5 years to return. So by the time they come back, Saturn is not even going to be here, and Neptune definitely won't be. So we can't have this configuration again for a long time. So this is tremendous change. So what I'm thinking is, in terms of, what's going on? Did I actually share that? One minute. on Momento. I'm not sure if I actually shared my screen. I was there pointing at stuff. Forgive me. Share. Forgive me. Perdon. I was supposed to... I was pointing at all of this kind of stuff and it wasn't even up on the screen. Bloody hell. Anyway, there we go. Now you can see it. Just to reiterate, look, so here we are. We see the big alignment up in sidereal Pisces, those planets that I mentioned. Here, this is the important one. Uranus at 1 degree 50 minutes, still closely conjunct to the star Algol, which is the star of betrayal. So here you can see, again, Trump is the main instigator of these betrayals via Kash Patel and the FBI, arresting that judge. But could Trump ultimately be betrayed by his supporters? The billionaires are starting to have second thoughts. We have to see. In June, by June, the orb connection between Uranus and Algol will start to become less. So if they're going to get rid of Duck Larange, it needs to be soon. Because Algol is the star of beheadings. It's the Medusa star. And it can mean the endings of careers. We've seen what's happened, sadly, of course, with the Pope. He has passed. So, these things tend to happen in threes. Anyway, we have to see what happens. The important thing is that Uranus in Taurus in an earth sign could lead to great upheavals quite literally in the earth. Quite literally. We'll have to see what happens in July. But either way, the new consciousness is coming. The new consciousness is coming. We have to see how it all pans out. We have to see how it all pans out. But I think when they talk about Atlantis rising again, maybe it's not literal. Maybe it's more metaphorical, metaphysical, in the sense of Atlantean consciousness coming back into the earth because it's reacting against the energies of Kali Yuga, those who are still trying to maintain that energy of what? Oppression and control, which of course Duck Larange and his cabal are so much about. And and just around the world we're seeing this, but it's like a tug of war. So I'm hoping that I'm a bit worried about, to be honest, about that prediction for Japan, because that will be devastating if you have suddenly this island mass, and they say it's like a triangular thing connecting Japan, Malaysia, and I think the South Korea, or this in like a diamond formation or something like that. That would be devastating. So there's part of me is kind of like, oh, I hope it doesn't happen, or if it's more gentle. But that's the thing with earthquakes, they go like that, or tsunamis. It's a sudden thing, and islands have appeared overnight in the past. It's not unprecedented. Things have sunk in the past as well, so we'll have to see. But I think this is also part of the big shift in consciousness as well. Big shift in consciousness. That kind of MAGA energy is leaving the earth. It just is. We can't, as humanity, carry on with this selfishness and this. It's just not going to work. The consciousness is ascending. But it means the old ways of thinking have to go, which can be very tumultuous. So we're in a time of transformation and change, but also increasing enlightenment as well. I really do believe that those are holding on to those higher energies will make it. In fact, I've been shown in dreams and stuff, humanity does make it, but not everyone does. But the ones that don't are the ones that are holding on to that low consciousness, because it's no longer an energetic match for the earth. Do you see? Everything has to rise up. So let's see. I'm going to leave it there. Otherwise, I'll just go on for too long. These shows are supposed to be half an hour, but anyway, it ended up being an hour long. I hope you have found that interesting. Please, of course, be sure to like and subscribe and share, so this content reaches a wider audience. Apologies as well if there's been a lot of adverts on the content. As us YouTubers, of course, we need to put ads on our stuff, so you know, so we can make this free content. And most of us will just portion it out. You know, I have maybe about 4, maybe 5 ads on my content, and we can select those places. Yeah, natural breaks and pauses. But YouTube has been adding extra on top, so I'm going to double check before this gets published, because I on my recent videos I've been placing the ads, and then I've come back and I see that there's like 25 ads across the whole video, which of course upsets, you know, it just disturbs the viewer experience. So I'm gonna, you know, double check to make sure that there's not too many ads on this when this comes out. But yes, please like and subscribe and share. Member subscription is free, doesn't cost anything. Like this video, and I will see you guys next week. But let me know what your thoughts are on Atlantis and these theories of potentially things rising out of the sea in Japan and or near Japan. We'll have to see. July is not far away. Part of me doesn't want it to happen because it could be really quite damaging, or at least if it could be something a bit more gentle, but we will have to see. But know this, as dark as things are right now, it's because the consciousness is rising, because those that want to hold on to the Kali Yuga energy are fighting harder. This is why you're also seeing Duck Larange go after judges and all that stuff, because they're trying to uphold the law, the higher energies, and he needs to intimidate them and frighten them. So one foot in front of the other, guys. And remember as well, protest, protest, protest for those that are in the United States in particular, because it does work. Ring up, support those senators that are wanting to uphold laws, etc., and fight for what is right in these times as we transform. As the energies of the higher manifestation start to manifest stronger and stronger on earth, you can make your contribution. This is my contribution to these things. And you know, I'll be doing workshops and all of that kind of stuff, like I said, in Ibiza, you know, coming up. More details to follow to help raise this energy and vibration, yeah, and beyond. But big love. I'll leave it there for now because I've gone on long enough, and I hope you found that interesting. All right, this particular reflections. All right, I'm going to leave it there. Bye for now.